blocks of vision. The future of public sector using blockchain technology. Mr. Asher Idan, lecturer and consultant at Israeli Universities, Israel.
Good morning. First autobiography. First time I heard about Bitcoin was in 2011 from my students at Tel Aviv University. They told me, go, you work with social network, you have to buy Bitcoin. But I didn't understood what is Bitcoin in 2011. The reality is that I understood it only in 2014 when I read the paper, the PDF of Satoshi Nakamoto. And when I read it, I realized that it cannot be one person. It's, for me, it's 10 genius people that wrote this PDF. But then, when I read it, after I read it, I understand that blockchain is the social network of money and of values, like YouTube can create a social video for everyone from his smartphone. I realized that blockchain is a social network of money or value. So it's like YouTube that create video, blockchain can create value, money, and other things. And in year 2014, when I understood it, first time I understood it, then 2 years later, in 2016, I read that the 100 big banks in the United States, they want to build blockchain, and they say they will save $30 billion if they move to the blockchain. Then I ask myself, if saving this about 10% of all your revenue as banks or a supply chain company, is it universal law? If it work everywhere, and I go and check many verticals like medicine, banking for sure, supply chain, universities, can they save 10% of all their revenue from just moving to the blockchain? And I find along all the 2016 that is universal law. You can save at least 10%. And then I think if we can save 10%, it means that we can move from 50 million users of Bitcoin or blockchain or cryptocurrency now, how we can move to 500 million, from 50 million people to 500 million, to 500 million. And it's go together with scaling. So we have the problem of scaling, how we can scale from 50 million users to 500 million. And then I remember when I was first time programming Fortran. In Fortran, I was programming at the mainframe of IBM, and then Steve Jobs came with his revolutionary video and say, computers are for the rest of us. And then I asked what I can learn from Steve Jobs and about computer are for the rest of us, why blockchain is not for the rest of us. Then I come to the trust question. So the saving question, this 10%, enabled me to understand the scaling. And the scaling to trust. And trust is, the main thing is smart contract. And the inventor of the smart contract, Mr. Nick Szabo, because I understand that in the paper of Satoshi Nakamoto, it is a special trust for finance, but it's like 300 years ago or 200 years ago when someone invent the engine, the steam engine. He invented a steam engine in order to work only in one special application 200 years ago. But then not only industrial engine like in textile, but it can be everywhere, in cars, in airplane, everywhere. There is a general engine of power. And smart contracts, I think of it as a general engine of trust. So it's generic, it's go everywhere. And if it go everywhere, there is 10%, We have something huge that we just began to discover, and then if we come from saving to scaling, and we come to trust, we have to understand what is the main obstacle to this coming from 50 million users to 500 million, and huge amount of saving. And then I discovered a rule of Santa Fe Institute about chaos and complexity that say that biological system can scale much more efficiently than artificial system like cities, banks, government. And I think they have the explanation of scaling. Why you have to invest 75% in infrastructure in biology in order to double your organization. For 100%, you have to save 75%. And why in artificial systems, you have to invest 85% to double your users, to double your amount. And then I see that decentralization is the main point of biology, because the DNA, it's amazing. The DNA is a blockchain of biology. It's billion of years old blockchain, natural blockchain. And I see along all the time of the history of science and technology that we have to learn from biological, natural system in order to create efficient artificial system. The last idea is neural networks, because from the 50s, when people invent the perceptron of artificial intelligence, they look at perception of biological system. But then Hinton came in 1986, and he tried to learn more deeply how biological neural network work. And then from there, he invents a deep artificial neural network from the biological system. So if we will learn how the DNA as a distributed system, as decentralized systems, that we find it in each cell, what will happen if everyone from 500 million people, half billion people who have the blockchain distributed in each his smartphone everywhere, in Africa, China, Europe, everywhere. What will happen? Then I find the answer that in order to scale more fast, more deeply, we need to keep the distribution. And the paradox between decentralization and scaling, I think we can solve it if we learn biological system and we try to copy from it to our system. So you see the scaling from mice to human being to elephant. In biology, they do it much more efficient. So we have to all the time to ask how we learn it if we want to scale blockchain, Bitcoin, and other things. Next one. So the government, I see the government role is a role like infrastructure, like road 100 years ago, trains. I see it as an infrastructure, and we can see the role of government everywhere. I won't count all of them. Everywhere you look at it, welfare, taxation, medicine, security, safety, legislation, democracy 2.0, democracy 3.0. The role of the government should be infrastructure of blockchain and learning from the principles of the blockchain, how to take smart contract into the government, how to take proof of work, the kind of chance or lottery, in order to create more democratic representation, much more than the representative democracy. So we see it's everywhere for the government. So I come to the point of trust, and I think that the blockchain is an amplifier of trust. I take it from economists in the year 2015, when I finally understand what is blockchain, and we come now from specific kind of trust to generic kind of trust. It's like the dream of general artificial intelligence, that it's still dream because artificial intelligence can drive a car maybe, but it cannot clean my apartment yet, and I don't think that it's artificial intelligence can clean my apartment in the coming 10 years. So now we have the technology of general kind of trust, and we can work with it. And saving. And the saving that I discovered is that we have now to connect my experience for 20 years, since the year 1995, with social network, with the beginning of social network, the beginning of the social, and to understand that if blockchain is a social network of money of value, that we have the missing link in order to take all this, what we call sharing economy. Yes, but it's not so much sharing, because Facebook and Google and Uber and Airbnb, it is not sharing, it's sharing for consumer, not for the producer. And as Elvin Toffler say in the year 1980, 40 years ago, he said we have to move to the prosumer, not producer and consumer, but to the prosumer. How to create Airbnb as a prosumer? How to share the profits of Airbnb and Uber to the taxi driver, to the people who subletize their apartment? This is a question. So we are moving, I think the main point is moving from sharing economy, that it's not so much sharing, from sharing economy to collaborating economy. How the people who make like in Facebook or search in Google get benefit of it, get part of the money. Why not that Facebook that worth maybe $500 billion, it will worth only $250 billion, and the other 250 billion will go to the user, to people who make like, to write status. So you see, the sharing economy is everywhere, Uber, Facebook, Airbnb, everything. So the point is that if we can move to blockchain, we can really move from sharing economy to collaborating economy, because it's also a point of scaling, because the sharing economy of content worth now $3 trillion. And we are now, this year, 2018, maybe 2017, we moved from $3 trillion content, social network content economy to $30 trillion to sharing economy, everything. Like I look at Tesla, for example, not as an electric car company, but I look at Tesla as a social network of electricity. If we can create electricity from a solar panel, from turbine, as I see in the plane on Vienna, I saw just 6 months or 1 year ago, I see maybe from the plane 50 or 60 wind turbine. Now I see 10 times more, everywhere wind turbine, everywhere solar panels, in Morocco, in Africa, in Israel, everywhere I see solar panel. So if we create electricity, why we need central electricity utility? It's like, you know, like before Apple, we have central television, central everything. But when we have smartphone, everyone can create and share content, video, text, music, Kazaa, Napster, everything. So we are now at a turning point that we can create electricity in distributed manner. Everyone can create electricity in solar panel or turbine, and we can share it. And so we'll have in maybe 10 or 20 years, we'll have the internet of electricity. We can share electricity by peer-to-peer for everyone, from the sun place of the solar panels to wind place of the turbine, and we can share it. And how we will share this electricity or car, but like Uber 2.0, like Airbnb 2.0, we need a new financial system. And this new financial system of the collaborating economy is the blockchain. This is a point now, we find the missing link of this $30 trillion economy of social network of everything. We connect it to the new kind of finance, the blockchain financial. When we connect it, then it will be the other step for moving from 50 million users to 5 billion, to half billion, and why not 5 billion? Why not all the humanity, all the world will move to this collaborating economy? And now about the point of saving. Why it's automatic? Why I discover the rule that everywhere you move, every vertical, every industry, you can save 10%, and it's maybe not an accident. It's like it could not be accident that in the year of the biggest financial crisis, in the second half of the 20th century, in 2008, the big financial crisis, it is the same year, the same month, the white paper of Satoshi were written. It could not be just an accident. So it cannot be an accident that this 10% rule, I read a paper that say, I think of it's McKinsey, that say that we can save, by the year 2025, we can save about $3 trillion. What is this $3 trillion? As I said a few minutes ago, all the social economy, social network economy is worth about $30 trillion. So if we take 10%, we suddenly discover, it seems like an accident, but it's not accident at all, that we can save $3 trillion. So you see, this universal law of saving work everywhere. Everywhere we touch, we see that we save 10%. So how the government can invest in blockchain infrastructure to save for business 10%, to save for itself as a government, to save 10%, and where to invest it in other places. And it's not only saving for business, for firm, it's saving from international commerce, for example. We see the fact that it is World Economic Forum, Davos, this is their research, that we have 70% growth of trade with a DLT. This is a better name for blockchain, digital or distributed ledger technology, because it includes other kind of blockchain without block, like IoT, like DAG, and things like this. And we see a jump of 1.5% of growth of world GDP by this technology. Yes, this is McKinsey. McKinsey check 15 industry and find the same rule working again. This rule that I discovered in the year 2016 about the 100 biggest banks in the United States. It's work in every other industry. We can find here with the red line what is the role of the public sector. We see that in public sector it can be efficient everywhere in the public sector, everywhere in other industry. And because it's very cheap, the Bitcoin is a very, very cheap kind of movement of money. This is other point of saving. And we can see that we are now at a point of not balancing. I mean, now in October 2018, there is a big gap between the real economic activity of the Bitcoin and the price of the Bitcoin. There is a gap. This gap is similar to the year 2016. And there where we will be in the year 2022 if we will scale from 50 million people to 500 million people. Thank you very much.